So there has been a ton of talk in my group about this particular investment. I've heard about it right here on YouTube, and the data shows money is just flooding into this investment. So what exactly is it? What's about to happen? What is this all about? Should you be actually, jumping all into this? What are the dangers? And everything kind of around this can't miss easy money investment. So let's discuss all that today, because I have a feeling some of you guys are not going to be happy with my take. Some of you guys are going to absolutely love my take, but you guys know I'm giving you the truth regardless. So that right there is worth a like, because you know I'm not a pumper and I'm definitely not a dumper either. All right, so actually a few weeks ago, I started hearing about this in my group. It was kind of this can't miss investment that's just going to come along. It's just going to change the game. It's guaranteed money. There was just a lot of chatter about it. And I didn't know what the heck it was. I had never really heard of it before. So I had to go do some research and kind of look into it a little bit further. And it's actually been around for over 20 years now. So I don't know how the heck I hadn't heard of it, but I hadn't. And it would be TLT, or basically the 20-year plus Treasury ETF. But it was being talked about in such terms, especially in my group. It's really, really odd to hear it being talked about in these terms, that it kind of just gave me reason to pause. It was just kind of one of those things to where I was like, oh, hold on here just a second. This is not normal discussion in my group. I really need to look a little deeper. So there are actually 3 fatal flaws at work here with this particular investment. So I'll let you know those. I'll let you know, is there an opportunity there or not? Because you guys know a lot of my stock picks actually come from my group members who find a lot of great stocks out there. Obviously, with a lot of us looking at, 1,000 plus of us looking into stocks, there's going to be hidden gems that get found out there. So I'll let you guys know if that's a gem or not that's going to hit my watch list eventually, and what price and all that good stuff. But hearing that it was just guaranteed to go up and it's this great thing just kind of made the hair on the back of my neck just kind of stand up, and I definitely took pause. And that right there is the first fatal flaw that we're going to discuss. And that is, nothing is guaranteed with investing. We don't need to look any further than all the AMC, GameStop mess and all that sort of stuff, where it was guaranteed to go to $100,000 per share, and all these charts and all this data showed it, and they have to cover, and they have to do this, and they have to do that, and this is going to happen, guaranteed, and all the other things like that that went on. Lots and millions of people bought into that narrative, and it simply wasn't true. We're 2 years later down the road here, and that guaranteed can't miss investment, where you're basically paying 100,000 PE for the stock itself, didn't come true. It didn't get to $100,000. I apologize. I know that makes some people upset, but the reality is that was not rooted in anything beyond speculation. It was not guaranteed, and nothing in the market is guaranteed. Hey, and you're right. I understand that a lot of you guys didn't get caught up in that mess, and you don't believe that. However, it happens with stocks that we absolutely love too. Think about it. This year, 2023, there were a lot of Tesla bulls out there making price predictions for 2023. And guess what? Some of them, their bear cases were $600 or $700 per share. And that was the bear case, guys. That was worst case scenario. Everything goes wrong. That right there was the worst case, was $600 or $700. And guess what? It wasn't guaranteed to even make the bear case, because we're at less than half the bear case now. That's why anytime I ever hear bear case, bull case, this is where it's going to go, and people making short-term predictions everywhere. And I understand why they do it. Their audience wants it. I'm not knocking, I'm not saying it's wrong or anything else like that. But whenever I hear crazy returns that are guaranteed, it definitely just gives me pause, because nothing is guaranteed in the stock market. The second fatal flaw is thinking that anything that is traded on the open market will behave differently than any other open market investment. While I agree, bonds do absolutely move different than stocks. I agree with that there. But the problem is, you're buying an ETF. You're buying a fund which trades just like a stock does. That means everything within that fund can get a lot more valuable, but it doesn't mean investors are actually going to pay more for that ETF. So, remember, fair value for the ETF is different than what the value of the bonds are inside. And so even though you might be able to remotely accurately predict what the 20-year bond's going to do if they lower interest rates or this, that, and the other, it doesn't mean people are going to actually buy into the fund instead of buying the actual treasuries themselves. It doesn't directly correlate. There may be some correlation there, but it's not directly correlated, or else why would Warren Buffett sit on his $100 billion plus cash pile and instead not put it into that if he knows, hey, the Fed's going to lower interest rates here soon. I can get in on this cheap and make a lot more than the 5% he's making right now owning actual treasuries. Why doesn't he just buy this instead? I mean, why even screw around with stocks at all if you can just invest in this instead and take out all the randomness of stocks? And oh, by the way, if you could take out the seemingly randomness with stocks, it's not random over the long term. If there was something out there that was guaranteed to make a lot of money on the back end there, guess what? There would be somebody out there placing massive bets, and we're going to see our first trillionaire investor. So to me, If you believe we're going to see our next trillionaire investor who's just going to lap up Warren Buffett and every other great investor out there, okay, then maybe that's what you believe. But I don't think that's realistic because nobody's out there making those kinds of bets because it moves like a stock. It's not going to be guaranteed, regardless of what the assets do inside. It's not guaranteed to move up. Therefore, there is risk involved there, and people obviously are going to be willing to take some sort of risk, but they're not going to be willing to take on this risk-free type mentality that kind of goes around this because this is an ETF that owns bonds. So if you don't think we're going to see our first trillionaire investor, it might mean that this fund is probably or maybe going to move a lot like a lot of other funds do. And the final fatal flaw is investing in something you don't understand deeply. So how many of you guys out there would consider yourself to have a deep understanding of the treasury market, how they work, how they move, and everything else involved with treasuries? And no, I don't count watching a couple of YouTube videos or reading a great article or even reading a book on that. I'm talking about intimately understanding treasuries, the treasury markets, how they move. Do you understand how they move in relation to interest rates, rises and lowers? And more importantly, how do they interact with the other treasuries? Do you understand that intimately? Do you understand how the options market and all the other markets that kind of revolve around treasuries impact those treasuries? Can you tell me exactly how the fund moves these treasuries around? Exactly which ones they own, what their maturities are, how they're going to rotate through those maturities, and what they're going to buy on the back end? Do you understand the mechanics of the fund itself? Can you tell me basically what the management fee is for the fund? And then can you tell me what all the other guidelines and all the other rules that kind of govern the ETF itself? You've got to know all those things. What are the actual tax implications for the fund itself? I mean, if you actually read the prospectus, which I actually did in preparation for this, and then whenever I was asked the question a little while ago, do you actually understand what the tax implications are? And just go to the prospectus. You can read it. There's some very interesting tax implications to this particular investment that actually could hurt your gains that you actually get, if any, in this ETF itself. Most people that I actually discussed TLT with knew none of these questions. They couldn't answer any of these questions, or they could answer just a few. And most of the time, they just basically admitted they're just basically giving me the bull case that they're regurgitating from a YouTube video or from an article or whatever the case is. That's basically it. That's all that they knew. That is not understanding what you're actually investing in. You've got to be able to just, these were just basic questions. There's a lot more questions you got to be able to answer. You've got to treat it like every other investment. You got to put in the work and do the due diligence. All right, so let me guys give you kind of my final take on this. I'll let you know if it's going to hit my watch list or not and what the price target would be if it's going to hit my watch list. So my final thoughts on TLT are as follows. There could be some opportunity there for sure, but it is absolutely far from guaranteed. But I will say when something like this picks up steam and it kind of seems like a surefire guaranteed kind of deal, typically the opposite is exactly what happens. Now, I don't know if that's what's going to happen with this particular investment or not. And for me, if I want to actually invest in bonds, I'm going to invest in the actual bonds themselves because I got a guaranteed 5% return sitting right there with virtually no risk. So there's no reason to take on any sort of downside risk, considering that's what I would use bonds for. I would use them for a place to park my cash until I'm ready to use that cash. And right now I'm getting a guaranteed 5% return, so I don't need to take on any risk in order to get a decent return on my money. And I'm not a bond expert, and I have no desire to go out there and actually learn the bond market intimately enough to where I'd feel comfortable investing in this. And I don't invest in ETFs for a variety of reasons, one of which just being the management fee, two is lack of control. And I don't like ETFs at all. I don't invest in any ETFs. So for me, this is just not an investment for myself. But there are many of you guys out there that have done the work on the bond market. You absolutely see an opportunity here with this investment, so it might very well be the appropriate investment for you, for your strategy, for your plan, and everything else. So again, I'm not knocking it. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it absolutely is not right for me. And from what I've heard from other folks, unfortunately, I don't believe they put in the due diligence to understand what they're investing in. So they're basically gambling a lot more than they are making a sound investment. Just make sure you're accounting for everything and you're avoiding the fatal flaws with any investment that you choose to take on. And remember, if you want to be able to discuss things like me privately or in my DMs or on our live Q&As or whatever the case is, make sure you check out the pinned comment down there and join the Market Insiders private group where you can do exactly that anytime you want. You can take 5 courses for free. We got a stock analyzer tool you can use completely for free. You can be a part of the best 6, 7, and 8-figure Discord out there. There's so much information in there, guys. There's so much stuff going on within the group and so much more coming. Definitely check out the pinned comment and see if it's right for you. And click this video here if you want to see exactly what I'm buying in this market. And click here to see my exact plan for this market. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.